So many of us grab processed foods every single day. I mean, they're just everywhere. But have you ever stopped to think about what they're actually doing inside our bodies? Well, today, we're going to dive deep into the science. We're talking about how these foods impact the trillions of tiny microbes in your gut and what that really means for your health. So let's get right into it.
Okay, so we've all heard it a million times, right? Avoid processed food. It's bad for you. But it's usually just this vague warning. Nobody really explains the why. What is actually happening inside our bodies when we eat this stuff? Well, that's what we're here to figure out. We're going to get to the bottom of that why.
All right, let's start with the big picture here. You'll often hear scientists talk about the Western diet, which is basically just a diet packed with processed foods. And look, the research is piling up, and it's drawing a really clear line. It's connecting this way of eating directly to a higher risk for a whole bunch of chronic diseases. And get this, what's really shocking is how little it takes to make a huge difference. Studies are showing that just a 10% increase in how much ultra-processed food you're eating, just 10%, is enough to seriously raise your health risks. That's kind of scary, right?
Yeah, and we're not just talking about a minor issue here. That little 10% bump is directly linked to a higher risk of dying from all causes. That includes stuff like cardiovascular disease. It's just a powerful reminder of how those small choices we make every day can really add up.
And if that wasn't enough, here's another big number for you. Check this out. 2 massive studies in Europe found that folks with a high intake of processed food had a 30% higher chance of developing diseases related to obesity and cardiovascular problems. I mean, at this point, the evidence is just becoming impossible to ignore.
Okay, so what do we even mean when we say processed food? Because it's not just about anything that comes in a package, right? The real difference, the thing that truly matters, comes down to what's inside, and maybe even more importantly, what's been taken out.
So, let's break it down. Think of it like this. On one side, you've got minimally processed or whole foods. They're packed with fiber, they're rich in nutrients, and they're basically the perfect food for all the good bacteria in your gut. But on the other side, you've got the ultra-processed stuff. They're usually super low in fiber, have way fewer nutrients, and they're loaded with additives and sugar. And all that stuff, it's basically fast food for the harmful bacteria, letting them throw a party and take over.
And that right there, that's the absolute heart of the problem. The additives and sugar in these foods aren't just empty calories. They're not neutral. They are literally feeding the bad guys in your gut, helping those harmful bacteria thrive while the good guys get starved out.
So, this all brings us to the main event, the battlefield itself, your gut microbiome. The best way to think about it is like this incredible, complex garden living inside you. And, well, the Western diet, it's like it's launching a full-scale assault on that beautiful internal ecosystem.
And just so we're all on the same page, what is the gut microbiome? Well, it's this huge, diverse community of trillions of microorganisms, bacteria and stuff, living in your gut. And they're not just hanging out. They are essential partners that help you digest food, and honestly, they play a massive role in your overall health.
Now check out this chart, because this shows one of the biggest impacts. When you eat a diet full of whole foods, you get high bacterial diversity. Think of a lush garden with tons of different plants. That's a sign of a really healthy, strong gut. But a diet heavy in processed foods, that leads to really low diversity, like a sad, weedy patch of dirt. And that's a major red flag for gut health.
There's actually a scientific name for this really unhealthy state. It's called dysbiosis. And it's basically just a fancy word for an imbalance, where the harmful microbes start to take over and crowd out the good ones. And believe me, this is where the real trouble starts. So you might be thinking, okay, it's an imbalance in my gut, so what? Well, here's the thing. What happens in the gut does not stay in the gut. This state of dysbiosis creates this ripple effect. It kicks off inflammation and problems that can spread through your entire body.
And we're talking about really serious consequences here. An unhealthy gut is now being linked to a whole host of issues. You've got direct problems like gut inflammation and things like inflammatory bowel disease or IBD, but it also connects to bigger body-wide problems like high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, obesity, even cardiovascular disease.
And just to make this super clear, let's look at a specific example. One study found that people who get just 10% or more of their daily calories from these highly processed foods were way more likely to develop IBD. I mean, you can't get a clearer connection than that between a common dietary habit and a really serious disease.
Okay, I know. That all sounds like a lot of doom and gloom, but here's the really important part. Here's the good news. Your gut microbiome isn't set in stone. You can absolutely change it. So let's talk about how to get back to a state of balance, because I promise it's more straightforward than you probably think.
So what's the plan? Well, it's actually pretty simple. It's basically the reverse of what causes the problem in the first place. Step 1. Start reducing those ultra-processed foods. Step 2. Bring in more whole and minimally processed foods. Fruits, veggies, fish, the good stuff. And step 3, and this one is so important. Prioritize diversity, especially with plant-based foods.
Okay, so when I say variety, what does that actually look like? Well, a lot of researchers are pointing to a kind of magic number, 30. The goal is to try and eat at least 30 different kinds of plant-based foods every week. Why? Because all those different plants feed all the different kinds of good microbes, helping you build that strong, diverse, and healthy gut community.
And hey, if you need just a little more motivation to get started, listen to this. Studies have shown that just by limiting processed foods to only 4 servings a day, you could slash your risk of developing type 2 diabetes by a staggering 62%. I mean, come on, that is an absolutely incredible return on investment for your health.
So when you boil it all down, it really comes back to this one idea. Your gut is a garden, and every single thing you eat is a choice. You're either planting seeds for a beautiful, vibrant, diverse ecosystem, or you're feeding the weeds. The power to choose is right there on your plate.
And that really brings us to the end here. Look, the main takeaway is not about being perfect overnight. It's not about throwing everything out of your kitchen. It's about taking small, intentional steps. So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. What's one small change, just one, that you can make to your plate today to start growing that healthier garden inside? Thanks so much for joining me.